What if I told you that right now, at this very moment, there is a coin so powerful, so disruptive, so fundamentally threatening to the way governments control your money that they are doing everything in their power to bury it. Not regulate it, not manage it, bury it. And what's wild? The more they try, the stronger it gets. I'm not talking about Bitcoin. I'm not talking about Ethereum. I'm talking about a coin that has quietly become the most controversial financial instrument on the planet. A coin that has triggered emergency meetings in government buildings from Washington, D.C. to Brussels to Beijing. A coin that has made central bankers sweat through their suits at 2 in the morning. And most people have never even heard of it. Today, we're gonna pull back the curtain. We're gonna follow the money, decode the panic, and understand exactly why the most powerful financial institutions in the world are terrified of what this coin represents. Because here's the truth. This isn't just a story about crypto. This is a story about power, about control, about who gets to decide what your money is worth, and whether you even have a say in that. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're gonna see the financial system completely differently. Let's get into it.
Point 1. The coin they can't control, and why that scares them more than anything else. Let me start with a question that nobody in the mainstream financial press actually wants to answer honestly. Why do governments hate certain crypto coins so much? You'll hear the official answers. It's used for money laundering. It funds terrorism. It's too volatile. It's a Ponzi scheme. But here's the thing. Every single one of those arguments applies to cash, physical, paper cash. And yet nobody is trying to ban cash because of those reasons, at least not openly. No. The real reason governments hate this coin, the real reason certain crypto assets send politicians into a panic is much simpler. They can't control it. Think about what a government actually controls when it controls a currency. It controls the money supply. It can print more. It can inflate it. It can devalue your savings overnight just by deciding to run the money printer. It controls interest rates. It controls who gets access to the financial system and who gets frozen out. And it controls the narrative around what wealth even means. Every single one of those tools disappears when a truly decentralized cryptocurrency takes root. And that's exactly what's happening with Monero. Yes, Monero, XMR. Monero is the privacy coin that has governments more rattled than almost any other asset in the crypto space. More than Bitcoin, more than any meme coin, more than any DeFi protocol. And here's why.
Bitcoin, for all its brilliance, has a public ledger. Every transaction is visible. Governments and blockchain analytics firms like Chainalysis have spent hundreds of millions of dollars building tools to track Bitcoin transactions. They can follow the money. They can freeze addresses. They can build a surveillance network on top of Bitcoin's own blockchain. Monero doesn't allow that. Monero was built from the ground up with one core principle: true financial privacy. It uses a technology called ring signatures, combined with stealth addresses and RingCT, ring confidential transactions, to make every single transaction completely untraceable and unlinkable by design. Not just difficult to trace, impossible. And that, right there, is the thing that keeps central bankers up at night. Because if people can transact freely, privately, peer-to-peer, without any intermediary, without any bank, without any government knowing what's moving where, the entire architecture of financial control starts to crumble. The IRS has literally offered bounties to firms who can crack Monero's privacy. They've paid out contracts to Chainalysis and CipherTrace. So far, nothing. Monero remains the one coin that professional blockchain intelligence firms openly admit they cannot reliably trace. That's not a coincidence. That's a design feature. Point 2. The global crackdown and the paper trail that exposes everything to them. Now, let's follow the paper trail, because if you want to understand how scared governments really are, you don't listen to what they say.
You watch what they do. In 2023, South Korea delisted Monero from every major exchange operating in the country. Not because of a hack, not because of fraud, simply because the government decided that financial privacy was incompatible with their regulatory framework. Let that sink in. Financial privacy, incompatible with the regulatory framework. They literally wrote that down. Around the same time, Japan had already banned Monero years earlier. Australia's major exchanges delisted it. In the EU, new Markets in Crypto Assets regulations, MiCA, contain language that effectively squeezes privacy coins out of compliant exchanges across the entire block. And in the United States, the IRS has classified Monero as a privacy coin of concern. The Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, has been pushing for reporting requirements so aggressive that many exchanges have simply decided it's easier to delist Monero entirely rather than deal with the compliance headache.
Binance, one of the largest crypto exchanges in the world, delisted Monero in 2024 in several markets, citing regulatory pressure. Not their own choice, regulatory pressure. Now ask yourself, does this sound like governments who think this coin is irrelevant? Because when powerful institutions move this fast, this hard against a single asset, it's not because they think it's going to disappear on its own. It's because they know it won't. The crackdown is fear dressed up as regulation. And here's the revealing part. The arguments they're using to justify these bans? They're paper thin. The same arguments could apply to cash, to offshore banking, to shell companies, all of which continue to operate completely legally, protected by armies of lawyers and the full machinery of institutional finance. Monero is being targeted not because it's uniquely dangerous. It's being targeted because it's uniquely beyond their reach. There's a famous quote, often attributed to various figures in financial history, that goes something like, "Give me control of a nation's money supply, and I care not who makes its laws." Whether those exact words were spoken or not, the idea is real. Control of money is the deepest, most fundamental form of power. And Monero is the first technology in human history that genuinely threatens to break that monopoly open. That's not hype. That's math.
Point 3. The technology they cannot break and the network that cannot be stopped. Let's get into the actual technology for a minute, because you need to understand this to appreciate why this coin isn't going anywhere, no matter how many exchanges delist it. Monero operates on a proof-of-work blockchain, similar in concept to Bitcoin, but with several key differences that make it uniquely resistant to both surveillance and centralization. First, there's the random X mining algorithm. Bitcoin mining has been completely taken over by enormous ASIC mining farms, specialized hardware costing millions of dollars. This has slowly centralized Bitcoin mining into the hands of a relatively small number of large industrial operators. Monero deliberately uses an algorithm that resists ASIC mining. RandomX is optimized for regular CPUs, the kind found in your laptop, your desktop, even your phone. This means ordinary people can still mine Monero meaningfully. The network stays genuinely decentralized. There's no single point of failure, no single entity that can be pressured, regulated, or shut down. Second, there are the privacy protocols themselves. Ring signatures work by mixing your transaction with a group of other transactions, making it mathematically impossible to determine which is the real one. Stealth addresses generate a brand new one-time address for every single transaction, so there's no linkable transaction history on the blockchain. RingCT hides the transaction amounts entirely, so even if someone could somehow identify who sent a transaction, they still couldn't see how much was sent. Stack all three together, and you have privacy that is not just strong, but cryptographically provable. This isn't a company promising you privacy and then quietly selling your data to advertisers. This is mathematics, code, and code doesn't lie. Third, and this is critical, the Monero network cannot be seized. There is no CEO, there is no headquarters, there is no company to sue, no server farm to raid, no individual to arrest who would cause the network to go down.
The Monero protocol exists as long as the global internet exists, maintained by a distributed community of developers and miners spread across every continent on Earth. Governments can delist it from regulated exchanges. They cannot delete it. And here's what makes this even more significant from a macro perspective. We are living through a period of unprecedented financial surveillance expansion globally. The introduction of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, represents the most aggressive push for financial control in history. China's digital yuan already has programmable restrictions. The government can literally set expiry dates on money or restrict what it can be spent on. The European Central Bank is pushing forward with a digital euro. The US is actively researching a digital dollar. Every single CBDC proposal in the world includes total transaction visibility for the issuing government. Every single one. That's not a bug. That's the point. Monero is the philosophical and technical antithesis of every CBDC ever proposed. That's not a coincidence. That's why it matters.
Point 4. The human cost of what happens when governments win this fight. I want to take a step back from the charts and the technology for a moment, because this story isn't really about coin prices or market caps. It's about something much more human. What actually happens to people when governments have total visibility and control over every financial transaction? You don't have to theorize about this. You just have to look at history. In 2022, the Canadian government froze the bank accounts of hundreds of people who had donated to the truckers' protest. Not people who had done anything violent, not people who had broken any law that existed before the protest started. People who had made legal political donations. Their accounts were frozen within days. No court order, no due process, just frozen. In authoritarian regimes around the world, and we're talking about places where millions of real people live their real lives, having your bank account frozen isn't just an inconvenience. It's a death sentence for your ability to operate in society. You can't pay rent, you can't buy food, you can't run your business. Your financial existence disappears at the push of a button. Now, imagine a world where every government has CBDC-level visibility into every transaction you make, where every donation you make to a political cause, every purchase you make that might be deemed socially undesirable, every financial relationship you have with anyone on some list somewhere, is instantly visible, instantly flaggable, instantly actionable. That's not a dystopia. That's the logical endpoint of the system that central banks are actively building right now, today, in 2025.
Monero's privacy isn't just a feature for people who want to hide something illegal. It's a shield for journalists in countries where journalism is illegal. It's a lifeline for dissidents who need to move money outside the reach of a government that wants them silenced. It's a tool for ordinary people in countries with hyperinflating currencies who need to protect what little savings they have. It's a way for people living under capital controls to participate in the global economy. Venezuela, Nigeria, Argentina, Lebanon. These aren't abstract countries on a map. These are places where millions of people have already experienced what it means to have the government weaponize the financial system against ordinary citizens. And in many of those places, crypto, including privacy coins, has been the only financial tool that worked when everything else failed. The governments trying to ban Monero will tell you this is about crime, but the biggest financial crimes in history, the 2008 mortgage crisis, LIBOR rigging, the Panama Papers, the Pandora Papers, were all committed inside the fully visible, fully regulated, fully KYC compliant traditional financial system. Privacy isn't the enemy of accountability. Power without oversight is.
Point 5. The market dynamics. Why the harder they push, the stronger it gets. Now, let's talk about what all of this means for the actual market dynamics around Monero and privacy coins in general, because there's a fascinating paradox playing out right now. Every time a government cracks down on Monero, every time an exchange delists it, every time a regulator makes a threatening statement, the immediate reaction in mainstream financial media is to declare privacy coins dead. The regulators have won. Monero is finished. You've seen those headlines 100 times in crypto. But here's what actually happens. The crackdowns push Monero off centralized exchanges and onto decentralized ones. Platforms like Haveno, Monero's own decentralized exchange, see their volumes spike every time a centralized exchange delists Monero. The coin moves from regulated, surveillable infrastructure onto truly peer-to-peer infrastructure that is fundamentally impossible to regulate in the same way. In other words, the crackdowns are accelerating exactly the kind of adoption that makes Monero most dangerous to the systems trying to stop it. There's also a supply dynamic worth understanding. Monero has a tail emission. Unlike Bitcoin's hard cap of 21 million coins, Monero's supply will always grow slightly by 0.6 XMR per block indefinitely. This is actually by design to ensure miners always have an economic incentive to secure the network, preventing the security budget problem that Bitcoin may eventually face. But it also means there's a steady, predictable, inflation-resistant monetary policy built in, not subject to anyone's political decisions. The demand side is equally interesting. As CBDCs roll out and as financial surveillance intensifies globally, the demand for genuine financial privacy doesn't decrease, it increases. Every new CBDC pilot program is essentially a free advertisement for why financial privacy matters. Every news story about a government freezing bank accounts for political reasons is a case study for Monero's value proposition. We've seen this pattern before in history. Every time a government has tried to control information flow, whether through censorship of the printing press, or blocking the early internet, or trying to stop encrypted messaging apps, they've ultimately failed. The technology moved faster than the regulation. The demand was too deep, too human, too fundamental to be legislated away. The same dynamic is playing out with financial privacy right now. And here's the thing about the crypto market as a whole. We are still in the very early innings of the largest transfer of financial power in human history. The total crypto market cap, even at its peaks, is still a fraction of the value stored in gold, in real estate, in the traditional financial system. The infrastructure is still being built. The regulatory frameworks are still being written. The institutional adoption is still accelerating. In that context, Monero isn't just a privacy coin. It's a proof of concept. It's evidence that financial privacy at scale is technically achievable, economically viable, and socially demanded. Whether Monero itself ends up being the dominant privacy protocol long-term, or whether its innovations get incorporated into other chains, whether through zero-knowledge proofs on Ethereum or through other Layer 2 privacy solutions, the genie is out of the bottle. You cannot uninvent financial privacy technology any more than you could uninvent encryption. The question isn't whether private, uncensorable, sovereign money will exist. It already does. The question is whether enough people understand what's at stake to make sure it survives the regulatory assault long enough to become truly mainstream. The closing. What this all means and what you do with it. So let's bring this together, because if you've been with me for this entire journey, you deserve a straight answer to the straight question. Why are governments trying to make this coin illegal? Not because it enables crime. Crime already has 1,000 ways to move money. The sophisticated criminal networks of the world use correspondent banking, offshore shell companies, real estate transactions, and trade-based money laundering, all of which are conducted through the very institutions governments protect and regulate. No. Governments are trying to make this coin illegal because it represents something they have never faced before in human history. True monetary sovereignty for individuals. Not for institutions, not for corporations, not for governments, for individuals, for you. The idea that a single person, anywhere in the world, with an internet connection and a phone, can store, send, and receive value without asking anyone's permission, without any authority being able to see it, freeze it, confiscate it, or inflate it away is genuinely revolutionary. And revolutionary ideas don't get banned because they're weak. They get banned because they're powerful. Here's what I want you to take away from today. Number one, the regulatory pressure on privacy coins is not a sign that they've failed. It's a sign that they've succeeded. You don't spend political capital trying to ban things that don't matter. Number two,
The technology works. Monero's cryptographic privacy has withstood years of the most well-funded government attempts to crack it in history. The math is sound. The network is live. The protocol is functioning.
Number 3. This isn't really about any one coin. This is about a fundamental question that our generation is going to have to answer. Do individuals have a right to financial privacy? Or does the state have the right to see and control every financial transaction you make forever? That question is going to define the next decade of policy, economics, and power dynamics globally. And the answer is not yet written. Number 4, do your own research. Everything I've shared today is a starting point, not a conclusion. Dig into the Monero white paper. Study the history of privacy coins. Look at the CBDC proposals from your own government's central bank and ask yourself honestly, what kind of financial system you want to live in? Because the decisions being made right now in regulatory bodies, in central banks, on crypto exchanges are going to shape the financial landscape of the next 30 years. And number 5, remember that every major financial revolution in history was called dangerous, illegal, and irresponsible by the institutions it was about to disrupt. Every single one. The printing press was going to destroy literacy. The internet was going to enable anarchy. Encryption was going to help terrorists. Bitcoin was going to collapse the financial system. And yet here we are. The most powerful force in any financial system isn't the government, isn't the central bank. It isn't the hedge funds or the institutional investors or the regulators. It's the unstoppable human desire to be free. And that doesn't have a regulatory solution. If this video gave you something to think about, if it shifted the way you see the battle between crypto and the state, then do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, because we're just getting started on digging into the stories that the mainstream financial media won't tell you. Share this video with one person who needs to hear it. Someone who thinks crypto is just about getting rich. Show them what's actually at stake. And drop a comment below. Tell me, do you think governments can actually win this fight against privacy coins? Or is the technology already too far ahead? I'll be reading every single one. See you in the next one. Stay sovereign.